Today, we are going to break down every single game in NFL Week 12, and I'm sure there won't be any surprises or chaos this week. Said no one ever. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to another episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. I'm getting really good at catching this specific pen, Grossi, and today I'm hoping that I'm going to get pretty good at predicting some frackin' games because last week I went 11-4, which is a respectable record. There were games that I was never going to predict correctly, which was the Jaguars absolutely stomping the Chargers, and heading into this week I am 111-52 on the season, meaning I am in 945th place. I was once in the top 200, you know? Back when I had some dignity and respect. However, still remaining at number one is Iron Cam with a 121-41 record. A huge shout out to Iron Cam, still holding it down. We'll see if we have a new number one after this week. And before we get into predictions, I want to do a big shout out and thank you to you all because not only have we been launching up in subscribers, we were 69,000 away from 1 million yesterday. Now we are 68,000 away. This show is free, no sponsors whatsoever. It's free to subscribe, so feel free to hit that subscribe button and help us get closer to 1 million subscribers. We're trying to get there before the end of the season, and then I truly promise I will never bring this up again. Starting off with Thursday Night Football, you got the Buffalo Bills taking on the Houston Texans. The Bills were able to bounce back because Josh Allen remembered that he was pretty good at football, scoring 6 touchdowns this past Sunday, and it was after a shaky start in which he had a couple of turnovers, but overall, the Bills very much needed this win because the Bills have been a confusing team this season. Their run defense is definitely not good, and their offense at times has definitely stalled out. James Cook, when he gets going, the offense looks pretty good. But on the other side of things, the passing game, it has been a little bit lackluster at times, maybe because of lack of wide receiver depth. And ultimately, I feel like the Bills this year are a good team. They're just not a great team, even though they have a great quarterback. They're going to be taking on the Houston Texans, who won via a game-winning field goal against the Tennessee Titans in an ugly divisional matchup. But again, you never know with these divisional matchups. I mean, hell, ask the Bills when they lost to the Dolphins, so yeah, you never know. And unfortunately for the Titans, CJ Stroud was already ruled out for this Thursday night game, so that means that General Mills is going to step up in primetime against Josh Allen.
Hello there.
General Kenobi. You are a bold one.
And for the Texans, we know who the Texans are. A team with an excellent defense, one of the best in the league, and a very mediocre offense. Whether you're looking at the offensive line, whether you're looking at their lack of a run game because nobody in the world knows where Joe Mixon is. Yeah, it has been a frustrating season on the offensive side of the ball for Houston Texans fans. And taking a look at this game, I think this is going to be a potential low-scoring matchup, and I think there's a possibility that the Texans wind up winning. With that defense, I don't think James Cook is going to be able to get things going, and as we mentioned before, the Bills have had some problems on the offense, and going up against an elite defense may be problematic. However, the Texans, I don't really think, have the offense to take advantage of the bad run defense that Buffalo has, and so because of that, I think the Bills, even though they're going up against a very good defense, I think they're going to be able to score more points here, and if you didn't know, if you score more points than your opponent, you win the game. Someone should have told the Packers that when they played the Cowboys. But I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills to get the win here. I do think that this is going to be a pretty close matchup. I can definitely see the Texans defense clamping down. But yeah, I'm going to give the edge to Josh Allen and the Bills. And if they lose, well, at least Patriots fans will be happy. Then, Chicago Bears fans have been waiting for this one. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Chicago Bears. The Steelers able to get themselves a win last week against the Cincinnati Bengals, even though there were punches thrown. Jalen Ramsey was ejected. Jamar Chase is now suspended for a week because he spit on Jalen Ramsey. It's a whole big thing. And for the Steelers, they're another team that has had a lack of consistency this season. There are times where their defense has looked phenomenal, and then there are also times where it hasn't looked good at all. And looking at at the offensive side of things, they're another team that if they can get their run game going, like with Jaylen Warren, they look pretty solid. And Aaron Rodgers, when healthy, he's able to get the ball out quickly, but there have also been times where that offense has been incredibly stagnant. And now with Aaron Rodgers having a fracture in his wrist, Bears fans are realizing they might not have an owner on Sunday.
Dobby is free.
Because the Chicago Bears are currently number 1 in the NFC North. Yes, it is truly the end times here. But the Bears, and I know there are critics who are going to talk about their schedule and the lack of quality opponents. And listen, I get all of that. And we're about to see how good the Chicago Bears are because just like the Packers, they're going to play a whole bunch of division rivals and the end of the Bears schedule is not easy. However, if you've watched Bears games this year, they have taken some major steps forward. Ben Johnson has really been what Chicago has needed. On top of that, Caleb Williams is not getting sacked a whole lot this season, which is making a huge difference. And he's made some remarkable throws and at times has won the entire game himself. On top of that, when DeAndre Swift gets things going, yeah, that is a well-balanced offense. Now, they do still have a banged-up secondary, and they're waiting for Jalen Johnson to return, which will be a big boost.
A big boo.
And taking a look at this game, oh boy, Bears fans, number 1 in the NFC North, and if they beat Aaron Rodgers, it's going to be freaking 1985 all over again. And for this particular matchup being played in Chicago, you know Soldier Field is going to be going crazy. On top of that, Aaron Rodgers is in line to play on Sunday, but it's not guaranteed. As of recording this, he is not practicing today, and so his status is still in doubt. And so if he's going to be playing on Sunday, he is going to be in a lot of pain, and I know that it's his non-throwing hand, but I think that's going to make a difference.
Percocet.
And so depending on which Steelers defense shows up, I think the Bears could win this one. Not just because the Bears are going to be highly motivated, but just because I can't really trust the Steelers right now. They're a different team from week to week, and I just don't know which team is going to show up now. And if Mason Rudolph is playing on Sunday, while he did a fine job against the Bengals don't really have a defense. So here, I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears to get the win over their former owner, Aaron Rodgers. And if they lose, well, then A-Rod will have the last laugh once again. Following that, you got the New England Patriots taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. The Patriots got a little bit of a mini bye after knocking off the New Jersey Jets on Thursday Night Football. And while it was a little bit of a closer game than some may have anticipated, 1, divisional game, and 2, Henderson is a freaking god. 3 touchdowns on Thursday night as he was able to slice and dice that Jets defense. 2 touchdowns on the ground, 1 receiving touchdown, and he has been a revelation in that backfield these last 2 games. He went off against the Buccaneers, he had a really good game against the Jets, and when Ramondre Stevenson comes back, I don't think he's really going to have a job anymore. And I know Patriots fans are not going to be too upset about that. They're going to be taking on the Cincinnati Bengals without Jamar Chase this week. And I'm sure Jamar Chase was pretty shocked when the NFL showed him footage of that loogie.
I didn't do it.
They have this clear videotape of you stealing.
That could be any bald guy.
Look at me, David Garvin, stealing TVs.
That is not me.
And the Bengals, yeah, Joe Burrow is practicing this week, but what is he coming back to? And I mean that. Yeah, it's ugly. The Bengals, they're a tough team this year, and I don't mean on paper, I mean just to watch. Their defense is absolutely atrocious. It is one of the worst in the NFL right now. And their offense, listen, I like Joe Flacco, don't get me wrong, he's not the reason they're losing games, but their offense, and now without Jamar Chase, going up against a solid defense, yeah, I gotta go New England here. I just think the Patriots are a much better football team right now. They are one of the top teams in the AFC, and they are contending for that number 1 overall seed, trying to rip it away from the Denver Broncos, who are on a bye this week. And yeah, even though this is being played in Cincinnati, I just don't trust their defense whatsoever, regardless of who's at quarterback. And so because of that, I'm going with New England to continue their win streak, and the evil empire will continue to reign.
We're on to Cincinnati. It's nothing about the past, nothing about the future. Right now, we're preparing for Cincinnati.
Then you got the New York Giants taking on the Detroit Lions. The Giants, they were involved in a battle with the Green Bay mother-loving Packers this past Sunday, and they kept it really darn close. Jameis Winston was trying to give the game to the Packers, just constantly throwing footballs to the secondary. They just didn't want to catch it until Evan Williams was like, you know what? I'm going to actually catch this football and intercept it. However, Tyrone Tracy had himself a really good day on the ground. And for Giants fans, listen, it has not been the season that you want, but there is hope. One, Jackson Dart is in line to play this Sunday, and so hopefully you'll get a better quarterback under center, so that will be nice. But with Cam Scattaboo out, Malik Neighbors out, not a great offensive line, it just feels like you're in a holding pattern until the draft, and then hopefully you can get a better offensive line and regroup for next season. They're going to be taking on the Detroit Lions, who, Lions fans, talked a whole lot of smack about the Packers offense that looked bad against the Eagles. And then look what happened.
That's fair. Sorry. I deserve it. Ow! That one really hurt.
The Lions couldn't get anything going on offense except Jahmyr Gibbs, who they were just dumping the ball off to, and they're like, run, Jahmyr, run! And he did. He looked really nice. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, he dropped a couple passes. Jared Goff was constantly under siege. The protection wasn't good, and the offense just couldn't get out of its own way, going 0 for 5 on 4th down. Taking on the Giants this week, even with a returning Jackson Dart, I think they have a much better chance at winning this football game. I don't think the offense has it all together yet, but they should be able to get back to their scoring ways and defeat the Giants this week. Now, Jackson Dart did give the Bears a whole lot of problems before suffering that concussion, and so we'll see if the Giants put up a pretty decent fight against the Lions. But if there's one thing about Detroit, their defense actually looked really good against the Eagles on Sunday night. We'll see if we're going to get the same thing this week. But here, I got the Lions rebounding here, getting a bounce-back win, and then you know who you play next. Following that, you got the purple incarnation of Satan, the Minnesota Vikings, taking on the Green Bay mother-loving Packers. The Vikings, how many turnovers does J.J. McCarthy have? 9? Or it's somewhere near that. I just wanted to say 9 because it's still really funny. But the Vikings losing to the Chicago Bears via a game-winning field goal last week, and J.J. McCarthy had a rough day at the office. And for the Vikings, Justin Jefferson seems to be at his wit's end, which, by the way, if they want to trade Justin Jefferson to the Packers, we will happily take him. But the Vikings, they are just in this weird spot. Sam Darnold, besides this past week against the Rams, has been playing really darn well with the Seattle Seahawks, but the Vikings decided to go with their young QB that they drafted in the first round, which makes sense on paper, but to go from a 14-win team to now what they are this season, it's definitely a fall from grace, and I can understand why their fans and the team is frustrated. They're going to be taking on the Packers, who thankfully, Packers wide receivers and Evan Williams remembered how to catch when it actually mattered. Just catch the freaking football. But yeah, that was a frustrating game as a Packers fan because they could have won by multiple scores if they just caught the freaking ball. I do think Matt LaFleur called a much better game this past Sunday. And again, if it wasn't for the missed opportunities, I think Jordan Love would have had an even better game than he already did this past Sunday. Now, the good news for the Packers, they're going up against a young quarterback at Lambeau who is prone to throwing some turnovers. Hopefully, our DBs can actually catch them this time. But the thing that's concerning me about the Packers, of course, is their offensive line going up against that Brian Flores defense, because even though the Vikings as a whole are not as good as they were, listen, they can still get a pass rush going, and if they're able to get after Jordan Love, there could be some problems. However, I do think the Packers have enough firepower, and if Jaden Reed winds up returning this Sunday, as he is alluded to on social media, that will be a huge boost to the offense. Hell, we might even see Marshawn Lloyd for like the first time ever, and we'll see what he can bring to the table. But ultimately, we'll have to see if Josh Jacobs is going to be playing this Sunday. I know he is day-to-day right now, but Emmanuel Wilson has been a really nice backup, and he's been able to fill in nicely. But yeah, I got the Packers winning at home. I just think they're going to be able to get after J.J. McCarthy with that pass rush, hopefully. And if they're able to cause problems, I imagine turnovers are going to follow. And so the Packers will defeat Satan. And if not, Then you got the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Tennessee Titans. Sam Darnold, that was a tough game, as once again, he lost to that Rams defense.
This looks strangely familiar.
It's because we've been here before.
It's just the Rams, man. They are his kryptonite. But the Seahawks, again, I gave them their flowers on power rankings. Their defense deserves a ton of credit. Even with 4 turnovers, they were battling in that game, and they were just a missed field goal away from winning that game on Sunday, which again, I think just speaks to the credit of how good the Seattle Seahawks are this season. Their defensive line is one of the best in football, and their offense, when Sam Darnold isn't turning the ball over, is really damn good. And considering they could beat you in a multitude of ways as we get closer and closer to the postseason, yeah, I'm not going to knock the Seahawks too much because I still think they're a very good football team. They're going to be taking on a very bad football team, which is the Tennessee Titans, who, hey, Cam Ward got that touchdown pass to Van down by the River Jefferson to tie the game late. That was kind of nice. And yeah, that was basically the only nice thing from Sunday. That game was just terrible. But the Titans have had a no good, very bad, awful season all year. Cam Ward is getting destroyed behind that offensive line. It is one of the worst in football. And listen, if Cam Ward can just get a little bit of protection and also some receivers and also a good run game, the Titans are going to be just fine on offense. It feels like Titans fans are just counting down until the end of the season, and going up against the Seattle Seahawks, I think they're going to wish it was the end of the season on Sunday, because I got the Seahawks winning. They're probably going to win by a lot. You do worry a little bit about that Titans defense, and maybe that pass rush will be able to get after Sam Darnold, but overall, I got Seattle getting a bounce back win. And Titans fans, only a few more months till April. Following that, you got what could be the game of the week. Oh, God, who would have said this back in September? You got the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. The Colts, they got to enjoy themselves a nice bye week last week, even though basically everything went wrong as the Jaguars won, the Texans won, they lost the number 1 spot in the AFC. But other than that, it was probably restful. They're going to be taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, who look like they didn't come back from the bye week because their offense couldn't get anything going against the Denver Broncos defense. And listen, the Broncos defense is really damn good, and on top of that, even though Simmons was back, they have a tough time protecting Patrick Mahomes this year. On top of that, they don't really have a run game. And now, after their latest loss to the Broncos, it looks like their run of division titles may be coming to an end.
I've never taken the high road, but I tell other people to, because then there's more room for me on the low road.
Not good, Kansas City. And they are going to have to show up to this game because this is going to be a challenging one. Being played in Arrowhead, I think, definitely is going to benefit Kansas City. But the problem is they're so one-dimensional right now because they have no ground game to speak of whatsoever. It's all on Patrick Mahomes. And we'll see how Sauce Gardner does with the Colts in his second game with them, because that secondary is the weak point for Indianapolis, and maybe Mahomes can take advantage of that. But yeah, the Colts are a really damn good team. The one thing that the Chiefs defense has going for it, besides not really having a D-line, is that they're pretty decent at stopping the run, and they're going to need to be to stop Jonathan Taylor from running all over Kansas City. And I could see this game absolutely going either way. If Daniel Jones takes care of the football and they're able to get JT going, I think the Colts can win and even potentially by more than one score. However, like I said, the Chiefs' defense when it comes to stopping the run is pretty darn decent, and I think this is going to have to come down to Daniel Jones beating the Chiefs through the air, and maybe, just maybe, the Chiefs can wind up winning that way. I know they're going to have to rely on Patrick Mahomes to air that ball out, and again, against a weaker secondary, that's how I can see Kansas City winning this game. And so, originally, I did pick the Colts to win this. However, I do think being played in Arrowhead is going to be enough of an advantage, and I know that the Chiefs definitely struggled on offense last week, but they're going up against a very different defense this week, and so because of that, one last shot, I'm going to go with the Chiefs to get a surprise victory here, trying to get back on track and save their season, and if not, well, yeah, then I think the Chiefs might be doomed. Then you got the New Jersey Jets taking on the Baltimore Ravens. The Jets, they had a respectable showing against the New England Patriots on Thursday night. However, they decided to bench Justin Fields, and you're going to get the Tyrod Taylor experience for the rest of the season, Jets fans. So buckle up, it's going to be a time. And the Jets are just hoarding draft picks right now, hoping to hit big in April because they're going to have to rebuild pieces of this team bit by bit. Oh, and they also need a quarterback, just that little thing. They're going to be taking on the Baltimore Ravens, who were able to get a win over the Cleveland Browns last week. And with that win, the Ravens have now won 4 in a row and are only 1 game back behind the Steelers in the AFC North. And while Lamar Jackson really didn't look good against the Cleveland Browns defense last week, The Cleveland Browns have a really damn good defense. It's the one saving grace of their team right now. I imagine they're going to have a little bit of an easier time going up against this Jets defense, which basically sold off some of its best pieces for parts. And so because of that, being played in Baltimore, I imagine the Ravens are going to have themselves a pretty good game here. On top of that, the most important thing is the Ravens defense has been playing really well these past few games. And so I think it's going to be a rough outing for Tyrod Taylor going up against that defense. So we'll see how Lamar and that offense look this week, but I got the Ravens getting a win. And Steelers, they coming. There, you got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. What is this? Who booked this? I know they have to play every 4 years, but this...
Brother,
And it just feels like, especially with these teams, they're always finding themselves in trouble.
Why is it when something happens, it is always you three?
Believe me, Professor, I've been asking myself the same question for 6 years.
The Cleveland Browns, as we just mentioned, in a losing effort against the Baltimore Ravens this past Sunday. You saw Dylan Gabriel leave that game with a concussion, and you saw Shedeur Sanders get his first playing time in the NFL, or at least during the regular season, and things did not go very well. And honestly, it works for both camps. If you hate Shedeur Sanders, you go, ha, he was really bad. If you love Shedeur Sanders, you go, the guy barely practiced and didn't know that he was going to be playing on Sunday, so give him a little bit of grace. And that's the beauty about the NFL. You could just take anything and go, hey, this fits my agenda. And Shedeur Sanders is going to be getting the start on Sunday, and he's going to have to go against Max Crosby and the Raiders, who got their ass kicked by the Cowboys defense on Monday Night Football. The Raiders could not get anything going on the ground. Ashton Genty had something like 6 carries for 6 yards. They had a safety in that game. Geno Smith is not looking great because they have no offensive line. And yeah, Max Crosby literally is the saving grace of that Raider squad. And taking a look at this game, yeah, it's a total toss-up, man. As I mentioned, the Browns have a very, very good defense, and so I can't imagine the Raiders are going to do much on offense. However, Shedeur Sanders in his first NFL start going up against Max Crosby, that could be problematic. So this might wind up being a 7-3 ball game, or hell, maybe even a 6-3 game. However, I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns to get a win here just because their defense is better than the Raiders right now. I can't trust the Raiders offense whatsoever. And so because of that, I'm going with Cleveland and Shedeur to get a win. And if Cleveland loses, well, then the Shedeur haters will be very happy. Then, a very intriguing game as the Jacksonville Jaguars take on the Arizona Cardinals. The Jaguars, they beat the holy hell out of Justin Herbert and the Chargers. That game was not even close. The Jaguars defense showed up. That pass rush was constantly hitting Justin Herbert, and they were able to get a big-time victory. And honestly, after losing Travis Hunter, they needed a big win.
Holy shit.
And the Jaguars, who are still in the playoff race, they have been a very frustrating team. They traded for Jacoby Myers, who has been their leading receiver for the past couple of weeks, which, hey, that's good for their offense. The problem is their offense has been very frustrating. Trevor Lawrence didn't have his best game on Sunday, even though they won big, and it just feels like we're waiting for the Jaguars to put it all together. But then again, I'm getting deja vu because a couple years ago, I was saying the same exact thing about their offense. And so you could see why I'm frustrated with the Jaguars. Imagine being a Jaguars fan. I can understand your frustration. They're going to be taking on the Arizona Cardinals, who you want to talk about frustration. Jacoby Brissett set the NFL record for most completions in a game with 47, and they still lost by 19 points to the 49ers. Yeah, that, Arizona, it's just, I don't know what you are anymore. They have no run game to speak of, which is not entirely their fault. They lost James Conner for the year, so, you have that. Their defense is better than what it was, but it's not elite. And their offense, when you're starting Jacoby Brissett over Kyler Murray, you already got problems. So the Cardinals are kind of a mess right now. And I can see this being an intriguing game because Jacoby Brissett does make the Cardinals competitive, but I do think the Jaguars defense, if they're able to get past that offensive line and cause some problems, they should be able to win this game. Hopefully the Jaguars offense is able to get things rolling now on Sunday and hopefully are able to put up some points. So I'm going to go with Jacksonville to get the win here, keeping them competitive within their division. And who knows, maybe they'll string together some wins and make the postseason. Then you got this NFC East showdown between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. The Eagles, holy God, these past 2 weeks, their defense has been putting on a clinic. You had Carter and Davis just batting down every single pass that Jared Goff was throwing. You had Jalen Phillips, who these past 2 weeks has been a stud on that D-line. And it just looks like that Philadelphia defense is different these past couple of weeks. And that is going to serve them very well heading into the postseason, as they are the number 1 team right now in the NFC. Their offense, frustrating. And now that has gone on 2 weeks in a row. Right before the bye, you had 2 really good weeks with Jalen Hurts playing well. Saquon Barkley was running all over the Giants. And then the bye week happened, and it looks like this offense can't get things going once again. Now, the Eagles were going up against 2 good defenses in the Packers and the Lions, and so we'll see if anything is different this week as they take on the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys, their defense looked really damn good this past Monday. Quinnen Williams, who they acquired from the Jets, immediately made an impact. Overshown is back on that defense, and while their secondary still is very suspect, that D-line and that pass rush was making Geno Smith's life miserable. But then again, they don't have an offensive line. And taking a look at the offensive side of things, their offense was clicking on Monday night, and George Pickens, he is going to get paid a ton of money this offseason.
Over $1.2 trillion.
He has been a phenomenal wide receiver 1 at times, or wide receiver 2 to CD Lamb. And honestly, the Cowboys offense is not the problem. Just like many other teams we mentioned, when they get the run game going with Javonte Williams, they are a much more balanced squad. Dak Prescott had a really nice night against the Raiders. However, they are not playing the Raiders this Sunday. They're going up against the Eagles, who I just got done talking about how good their defense is. And so this is going to be a really great matchup between a good offense and a good defense. And I'm really excited to see how this one's going to pan out. Of course, the first time they played in the season opener, the Eagles were able to get a win. At that point, they didn't have Jalen Carter, and they also didn't have Jalen Phillips. So yeah, this might be an advantage for the Philadelphia Eagles. And on top of that, this might be a big game for Jalen Hurts. Saquon Barkley hasn't really been able to get much going on the ground, and so I can't really rely on him right now. So this is going to have to come down to Jalen Hurts exposing that Cowboys secondary. And I got to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys were able to sneak away with a win. 1, it's a divisional game. 2, their last matchup was pretty darn close. And again, the Cowboys have a good offense, and their D-line has improved getting Williams and Overshown back. However, I am going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles here, just because the last time the Cowboys played a really good defense, that was the Denver Broncos. And yeah, you saw how that one worked out. Dak has been really careful with the football this season, but here I can see the Eagles forcing some turnovers, or at the very least sacking Dak a bunch of times. So here, I'm going to go with Philadelphia to get the big time win, sweeping the Cowboys and setting their sights on that bye week. Then you got an NFC South showdown between the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints. The Falcons actually had some hope heading into the game last Sunday.
No surrender. No surrender. No surrender. Oh, I surrender.
And that did not last very long. Michael Penix is out for the year as he has to get ACL surgery, so you're going to have Cousins start for the rest of the season. And for the Falcons, it has been a maddening season. Their defense, especially their pass rush, you can't deny, it has definitely improved. However, they just can't get out of their own way. You look at coaching woes, you look at play calling, you look at lack of execution, where Bijan Robinson is, and overall, the Falcons, who had a lot of potential and hype after beating the Buffalo Bills on that primetime game, yeah, they have kind of fallen apart and are now in 3rd place in their division. They're going to be taking on the Saints, who got to enjoy their bye week last week. As the last time we saw them, they were able to take down the Carolina Panthers, something that the Falcons could not do this season as they got swept by Carolina. And for the Saints, we're just going to see how good Tyler Shuck is. We've only seen him a couple of games, and he had one really nice game against the Carolina Panthers, and we'll see if he's going to be able to carry it over here. The Falcons, they just seem like a team that should win this game, but again, they should have won a lot of games this season. The good news for Atlanta is that they're keeping it close against some of the better teams in the league, but it's not really doing a whole lot for their record because they are in danger of missing the playoffs, which they are likely going to do. Here, I do think the Falcons can get the win. I do think they just have a more talented roster right now, and I think Shuck is probably going to get hit a few times because, again, the Falcons' pass rush is better. So I'm going with Atlanta to get the win here, but if they lose to the Saints, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised at this point. Then on Sunday night, you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Los Angeles Rams. The Buccaneers held their own a bit against the Buffalo Bills this past Sunday, and then Josh Allen scored 6 touchdowns, so that brought an end to that. And the Buccaneers, listen, they have not had an easy schedule. They lost to the Patriots, then at Buffalo, and now they gotta fly all the way to Los Angeles to play the Rams.
I'm tired, boss.
And just like every single week, I'm typing in, is Bucky Irving coming back? Is Chris Godwin coming back? And the answer? Maybe. Both players could be returning this Sunday night, and that would be an incredible boost to this offense as they have just been waiting because they've been playing without their RB1, their wide receiver 1, their wide receiver 2. And Ibuka is very good, don't get me wrong, but you can only do so much, especially after playing some of the better teams in the NFL. And they're going to be going up against a very good team in the LA Rams, who were able to get a win against the Seahawks last week. The Rams are now atop of the NFC West, and even though that game was close at the very end, you got to give a lot of credit to that Rams defense, who did a really nice job forcing turnovers, and Sam Darnold threw 4 interceptions against them. Now, the play calling at the very end of that game, a little bit suspect, and while Matthew Stafford didn't light it up on the scoreboard like he has been doing the past few weeks, the Rams are one of the most balanced teams right now, and most importantly, they're healthy. They are going to have to play against the Seattle Seahawks later down the line in about a month in Seattle, so that will be a great showdown. But going up against the Buccaneers, especially if they have Godwin and Bucky back, is going to be an excellent test here. I could definitely see Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers pulling this one off, especially if they get those guys back from injury. However, it's really difficult to pick against the Rams right now. Their offense and defense is just clicking, and so because of that, I'm going to go with the Rams to get a win in what should be a very good Sunday Night Football matchup. And the Rams, everyone can keep on doubting you, but they're just going to keep on winning. And then finally, on Monday Night Football, you got the Carolina Panthers taking on the San Francisco 49ers. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the first Panthers primetime game in over 2 years.
It's showtime, folks.
A very well-earned accolade as Bryce Young threw for nearly 450 yards against the Atlanta Falcons last week. And I picked against the Panthers, and I said the only way that I thought they would win is if Rico Dowdle was able to get the ground game going. And guess what? He didn't get it going, and Bryce Young absolutely lit up that Falcons secondary. On top of that, Teteroa McMillan, he has definitely proven to be the guy there in Carolina, and there's a lot to be excited about this Young offense. Bryce Young has definitely gone through his ups and downs this season, but to have the game that he did last week against a divisional opponent, you got to give him a whole lot of credit. And because of that, they have now swept the Atlanta Falcons this season. They're going to be taking on the 49ers, who got themselves a big win over the Arizona Cardinals last week. You saw the return of Brock Purdy, and he played an excellent game. Didn't turn the ball over, had multiple touchdowns. And for the 49ers, it's a frustrating season just because you look at the defense and it could be so much better. But with all the injuries, you can't really do much about it. And it feels like the 49ers are a very competitive football team. They could potentially still be a playoff team, but are those injuries going to hamper them down the stretch? And this game, I think, could turn out to be pretty darn good. If the 49ers are able to stop the run and force Bryce Young to throw the football, can Bryce have that repeat performance that he had last week? And honestly, there's a good chance that Bryce Young throws for a ton of yards once again, because right now the 49ers have the second worst passing defense in the NFL. They also have the 17th ranked run defense, and so Rico Dowdle could have himself a really good game. These past couple of weeks, he's barely been seen at all, so maybe this is his resurgence game. But looking at the Panthers, they have the 20th run defense right now, so it might be a big game for CMC, who has been basically the entirety of the 49ers offense. I know they have Ricky Pearsall back, so we'll see if he's going to have himself a good game, because the Panthers, they have the 22nd ranked pass defense. And so I can see this game going either way. Which Panthers squad is going to show up on Monday night under the bright lights, and can Brock Purdy put together yet another good performance, and can CMC run all over this Panthers defense? Good questions. Here, I'm going to go with the 49ers to get the win. One, because picking against the Panthers apparently gives them superpowers, so you're welcome, Carolina. But ultimately, if CMC is able to get things going, I think they have a good shot to win this football game against his old squad. And I think it's really just going to come down to, can Bryce Young throw the football against this really bad secondary? If he can, the Panthers could win, but I'm going to go with the 49ers to get the W here. And if they make the playoffs and the Packers make the playoffs, I'm going to regret this so much. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you got winning and losing this week? Let me know. You know, send me at TomGrossiComedy.com, and a big shout and thank you to all the Patreon and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.